I don't know if you remember 2 weeks ago, Pastor Marion was taking us through to the end of Nehemiah chapter 2. And she encouraged us and challenged us to Nehemiah's example of a life of consistency, a life of relationship, and a life of preparedness. And is that who we are? Last week, Pastor Pam took us to Isaiah 61. And this very, very well-known prophecy. Yeah, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. Words that Jesus shared in Luke's Gospel and said this is the fulfillment of that prophecy. And in verse 4 of Isaiah 61, Pam read it out, that they will rebuild the ancient ruins and restore the places long devastated. They will renew the ruined cities that have been devastated for generations. Isaiah lived and prophesied about 300 years before Nehemiah. And we're back in Nehemiah today. And Nehemiah is the story of rebuilding ruins. It is a story of restoring places that are devastated. It is a wonderful story of restoration and hope being rekindled for a community. But it's been, up until now, entirely from his perspective. We're going to change tack. And as we do, if I was to ask you individually what your favorite Bible verse or passage is, I imagine most, if not all of you, could tell me a verse, a few verses, a parable, something that is like a go-to for you. My most memorable Bible reading experience happened when I was sailing. And I did the thing that nobody, I'm reluctant to say nobody should do, but in my case, it really was not wise. I did that thing where you're reading and you wake up every day and you just open your Bible randomly and you go, I'll read that. I did, and I got to Psalm 69, which, bearing in mind I was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, read, "Save me, O God, for the waters have come up to my neck. I sink in the miry depths where there is no foothold. I've come into the deep waters, the floods engulf me." I quickly prayed, "Oh Lord, please may that not be prophetic," and found something else to read. But if we have a favorite Bible verse or a most memorable passage, we can all think of something, generally speaking. When it comes to least favorite, I struggle with names. I struggle with lists. And Pastor Sean may not appreciate me saying this. I struggle with geography. He was a geography teacher. I love history. I love the history side of things. But geography, names, I'd take it or leave it. If you're looking for baby names, go to 1 Chronicles, chapters 1 to 8. You'll find so many weird and wonderful names. And on that note, we're going to read Nehemiah chapter 3. We're going to read all the way through. It says this: "Eliashib the high priest and his fellow priests went to work and rebuilt the sheep gate. They dedicated it and set its doors in place, building as far as the Tower of the 100, which they dedicated, and as far as the Tower of Hananel. The men of Jericho built the adjoining section, and Zakur, son of Imri, built next to them." I hope you've buckled up. This is going to be a rip-roarer of a passage. "The fish gate was rebuilt by the sons of Hassenaah. They laid its beams and put its doors and bolts and bars in place. Meremoth, son of Uriah, the son of Hakkoz, repaired the next section. Next to him, Meshullam, son of Berechiah, the son of Meshezabel, made repairs, and next to him, Zadok, son of Baana, also made repairs." Exciting stuff so far. "The next section was repaired by the men of Tekoa, but their nobles would not put their shoulders to the work under their supervisors. The Jeshana gate was repaired by Joiada, son of Paseah, and Meshullam, son of Besodeah. They laid its beams and put its doors with their bolts and bars in place. Next to them, repairs were made by men from Gibeon and Mizpah, Melatiah of Gibeon and Jadon of Meronoth, places under the authority of the governor of Trans-Euphrates." And if anyone is now picking up their phones trying to schedule lunch, stop it now. Uzziel, son of Harhiah, one of the goldsmiths, repaired the next section, and Hananiah, one of the perfume makers, made repairs next to that. They restored Jerusalem as far as the broad wall. Rephaiah, son of Hur, ruler of a district of Jerusalem, repaired the next section. Adjoining this, Jediah, son of Haramath, made repairs opposite his house, and Hattush, son of Hashabneah, made repairs next to him. Malchijah, son of Harim, and Hashub, son of Pahath Moab, repaired another section, and the Tower of the Ovens. I'm really curious about a Tower of Ovens. Shallum, son of Halahesh, ruler of half a district of Jerusalem, repaired the next section with the help of his daughters. Josh, Heather, that one was for you. The Valley Gate was repaired by Hanun and the residents of Zanoah. They rebuilt it and put its doors with their bolts and bars in place. They also repaired 1,000 cubits of the wall as far as the Dung Gate. If the Tower of the Ovens was what I think it is, what is a Dung Gate? But 1,000 cubits is roughly 450 meters. That's a decent stretch of wall. The Dung Gate was repaired by Malchijah, son of Rechab, ruler of the district of Beth Hakerem. He rebuilt it and put its doors with their bolts and bars in place. Seeing a pattern at the moment. The Fountain Gate was repaired by Shallun, son of Kol-Hoseh, ruler of the district of Mizpah. He rebuilt it, roofing it over and putting its doors and bolts and bars in place. He also repaired the wall of the pool of Siloam by the king's garden, as far as the steps going down from the city of David. Beyond him, Nehemiah, not the same Nehemiah that we've been reading about, son of Azbuk. This is a different Nehemiah. I know you were asking that question. Thank you for it. I've received that question and I answer it for you. Ruler of half district of Beth Zur made repairs up to a point opposite the tombs of David, as far as the artificial pool and the house of the heroes. Now that I want to go to. Next to him, the repairs were made by the Levites under Rehum, son of Bani. Beside him, Hashabiah, ruler of half the district of Keilah, carried out repairs for his district. Next to him, the repairs were made by their fellow Levites under Binnui, son of Henadad, ruler of the other half district of Keilah. There are two. Next to him, Izah, son of Jeshua, ruler of Mizpah, repaired another section from a point facing the ascent to the armory as far as the angle of the wall. Next to him, Baruch, son of Zabai, zealously repaired another section. The writer thought that we needed to know that he zealously repaired that bit. When we read zealously, think angrily. From the angle to the entrance of the house of Eliashib the high priest. Next to him, Meremoth, son of Uriah, the son of Hakkoz, repaired another section from the entrance of Eliashib's house to the end of it. The repairs next to him were made by the priests from the surrounding region. Beyond them, Benjamin and Hashub made repairs in front of their house. And next to them, Azariah, son of Maaseiah, the son of Ananiah, made repairs beside his house. Next to him, Binnui, son of Henadad, repaired another section from Azariah's house to the angle and the corner. And Palal, son of Uzai, worked opposite the angle and the tower, projecting from the upper palace near the court of the guard. Next to him, Pedaiah, son of Parosh, and the temple servants living on the hill of Ophel made repairs up to a point opposite the water gate, toward the east and the projecting tower. Next to them, the men of Tekoa repaired another section, from the great projecting tower to the wall of Ophel. We've heard of the men of Tekoa already. Above the horse gate, we're coming into land, guys, the priests made repairs, each in front of his own house. Next to them, Zadok, son of Immer, made repairs opposite his house. Next to him, Shemaiah, son of Shechaniah, the guard at the east gate, made repairs. Next to him, Hananiah, son of Shelemiah, and Hanun, the sixth son of Zalaph, repaired another section. Next to them, Meshullam, son of Berechiah, made repairs opposite his living quarters. Next to him, Malchijah, one of the goldsmiths, made repairs as far as the house of the temple servants and the merchants, opposite the inspection gate, and as far as the room above the corner. And between the room above the corner and the sheep gate, the goldsmiths and merchants made repairs. I need a drink. There is a pastor of a church in America who would read things like that, get to the long names, and just not bother. He'd just go, the fountain gate was repaired by Hardword, son of Hardword. Trouble is, there are too many hard words. Problem with Nehemiah chapter 3 is that we're a Assemblies of God church, which means that our denomination is a Pentecostal one. Now, when that means that generally speaking, when we pick up our Bible and read it, we're reading it for application. Some people read the Bible simply for meaning. What does it mean? We pick up our Bibles and we read it and ask, now, what do we do with it? What do you do with Nehemiah chapter 3? And all of those names and all of that geography. My question at the start of today is, who built the wall? And just to take us away from Nehemiah for a second, when you think of something like Jesus and the feeding of the 5,000, let's ask the same question about him and them. Who fed 5,000 people? You've got, if you did read the different accounts, you've got three candidates. You've got Jesus, performs a miracle. You've got the disciples who hand out the loaves and the fish. And you've got a little boy who brings his lunch. And if you ask who fed 5,000 people, was it Jesus, the disciples, or the little boy? I hope we can get to the point of saying, yeah. They all had a really important part to play. One of our key verses for this series on build is Psalm 127 verse 1 that says, unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. That is true. But one of the wonderful things about God is God does some of his best work in partnership. His idea is us being involved. We're part of the story. And he could do it on his own, and he chooses not to. If you imagine God being like a chef, it is less about us sitting in the restaurant waiting for him to do it all and serve us with the completed package. It's much more like God asking us to come into the kitchen. Let's cook up something wonderful together. Nehemiah chapter 3 is a story of partnership. If you ask the passages that we've been reading over the last few weeks with Pastor Sean and Pastor Marion, who built the wall? Well, you've got Nehemiah, the pioneer, the prayer, the one at the start who's cut up about the state of his city. You've got an enemy king who bankrolls the project. And you've got God, who we all recognize as kind of the chess master in amongst it all. If you ask who built the wall, we can say, yeah. And now it expands to dozens of people. Some of them build long stretches, almost half a kilometer of wall. Some of them build the bit outside their house. Some of them build multiple sections. Some of them build bits that protect other people. Some of them come in from other places, will not receive any benefit from the wall, but will do the job to help the wall get built. All of it matters. And I have actually grown over the last week to really, really enjoy Nehemiah chapter 3. I think that often as Christians, I love it for many reasons. I love that it's so widespread, and Nehemiah calls on the diversity of multitudes of people, rulers and sons and daughters and all sorts of people. I love how practical it is. And often as Christians, we can get really sidetracked with it's spiritual or it's practical. That, no, I'm just here to pray. Our Bible does tell us also that faith without works is dead. And that actually our spiritual faith has a very practical element. And actually some of the most spiritual things we can do are very practical acts of service. They go together. Just as Nehemiah, a king, God and people. Who built the wall? Yeah. Are we called to just spiritual or physical? Yeah. And what I love about Nehemiah chapter 3 is the number of people who build a wall who are not made for it. Verse 1 tells us about Eliashib the high priest and his fellow priests went to work and rebuilt the sheep gate. You know what the high priest's job is? Exodus chapter 28, verse 29, Aaron, the first high priest for the Jewish people, we're told that whenever Aaron enters the holy place, he will bear the names of the sons of Israel over his heart on the breastpiece of decision as a continuing memorial to the Lord, before the Lord. The job of the high priest is to represent the people to God, God to the people. It is not to build a wall. But they're willing. They're willing to do a job that's not theirs to do. It's not too practical for their spiritual selves. It's not in, there are so many other things that they could be doing. And it's not just them, it's goldsmiths, perfume makers, district officials, Levites, temple servants, fathers and daughters, and outsiders. In fact, the only profession in Nehemiah chapter 3 that is not listed is builders. None of them are listed as people who had the ability to build a wall, but all obviously had it. Sometimes you only find out you can do something retrospectively. I guarantee that we've heard something like, stay in your lane. You play to your strengths. You live in your sweet spot or do what you do. Do the things that you're gifted for. I mean, I endorse that. One of the things that you are gifted for and equipped for, do them. But what if we changed the questions that we are asking from what is the job that fits me to what is the job that needs doing? If we showed up at our workplaces, wherever it was, and gravitated less to the jobs that we like because they suit us, and more towards the jobs that aren't being done, that need to be, we may just find out that we are gifted for a whole lot more than we ever thought we would be. I guarantee that there are people in this long list of names who never thought they'd be gifted to build a wall. And here they are. I arrived in New Zealand in 2009, and I met Marion and got involved in church life down in Raglan. And one of the things I actually discovered before I moved to New Zealand, was that the church in Raglan had a film team. And instead of someone standing at the front of church to announce the notices every week, they would make a little news production. They have presenters, they have an editor, and Marion ran the film team. And they asked if I'd be involved. I'd never done anything in front of or behind a camera of any note in my life. But it was the job that they needed a bit of help with. So Marion taught me how to use a camera and point a camera and pay attention to lights and how to edit. And then as our children came along, Marion had a bit less to do with the film team, and I had a bit more to do with the film team, and they asked me to lead the film team. And so I started to develop a team and had to start to teach people how to film and to edit and to pay attention to light and sound and the background behind, and how to construct a set and a studio and all of these things. And it got to the point where when COVID hit, we were able to put together film services. And I understand that we had some similar things going on here, where we'd film church. And the irony was I still don't really know anything about it. I did trial and error for 14 years. And we had Life Church came down to Raglan one time to do some filming for Sisters Conference. And they were doing like a surprise a sister thing, and Marion was the surprise a sister that year. She'd gone through brain tumor and everything, and so she'd been nominated for surprise a sister. And they wanted to interview me as the husband, why she's wonderful and awesome. That bit was the easy bit. No points. The hard bit was at the start, before any of the cameras turned on. My assistant pastors introduced me to the film team of Life Church, who are professional filmographers and videographers and editors and everything else. They introduced me to them as the team leader. So, hi, how are you? And we started chatting, and film people want to know, what's the gear you use? 14 years, I did not know the gear that we used. I was never gifted for film, but it was the job that needed doing. Who built the wall? People who weren't gifted as builders. What if we were to start asking more? What's the jobs that need doing? And less, what are the jobs that fit me? Second question I've been asking, who didn't build the wall? There's a long list of people who did get involved. There's actually only one mention of people who didn't, and it's in verse 5, which says, the next section was repaired by the men of Tekoa, but the nobles would not put their shoulders to work under their supervisors. It's really interesting that the men of Tekoa, the lower ranks, got involved. And not only that, they got to get involved in multiple places. We see in verse 27 that they then go and repair someone else's other section. They're invested. They're really keen to get involved, to get stuck in. Their nobles wouldn't do a thing. It's ironic that the meaning for noble that is used there is someone who is mighty, majestic, splendid, powerful, and awesome. And in that verse, there are wonderful, awesome, mighty, splendid people, but they ain't the nobles. They're the ones on the lower rank. The nobles, we're told they refused to work with the supervisors. Actually, that's the bit that when you read supervisors, read Nehemiah himself. They had something personal against him. Something had caused them some offense. An offense that for some reason didn't transfer to their subordinates, their juniors, who were really keen to get involved. I think this is wonderful. If you are here today and you are not in senior leadership or management or in a place of governance or anything like that, and you're wanting to be influential, good news, you can right now. That your position does not determine your influence levels. Your character and your conduct trump rank and position any day. So much so that the men of Tekoa were more noble than the nobles. Because they were unoffendable. I don't want to offend anybody here. But how many of us know that we are quite good at making other people's offences seem small and justifying ours as being quite big? Guilty as charged, right? There is a difference, too, between sin that needs to be dealt with, and it does, and offence that needs to be worked out in ourselves. And the English language is really interesting when we think about offense because you don't give offense. You know, you give insult. You hurl insult. That's something that you throw out. You take offense. I think the nobles of Tekoa took offense and claimed it for themselves. And when you take offense, you do build a wall. And it's not the good kind. I am inspired, as I so often am in matters like this, by the philosophy of Flight of the Conchords, who wrote a song called Hurt Feelings. And it's a wonderful song that talks about Brad and Jermaine on stage, talking about the dinner that they made that nobody said thank you for, the time where they went to the clothes shop to find a wetsuit and the person suggested that they should try the ladies' sizes. One of my favorite verses is from Jermaine. It says, "We're talking about my birthday, 2003, and I'm waiting for a phone call from my family. 12:23, they forgot about me. I've got hurt feelings. I've got hurt feelings. The day after my birthday is not my birthday, Mum." Thanks for the message. "I've got hurt feelings. I've got hurt feelings. It's your birthday. We're going to party like your mum forgot your birthday." And we laugh because it's so silly. The offense is ridiculous. But we're so often so good at realizing and recognizing somebody else's offense as being so small. How many times are we so blind to the fact that so is ours? And there is a difference between sin to confront and deal with and offense that we do need to push past, because there is a bigger picture, and the men of Tekoa get that. I mean, if it comes to actually how we deal with offense, we have a model. I mean, Jesus allowed other people to call him demon-possessed. He allowed other people to mock him, to fabricate all sorts of lies to get him killed, to laugh at him while he died. And he didn't take offense. He said, "Forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." So what are we building? Because it's never just a wall. Yeah, Nehemiah is not just the story of a wall being built. There's a lot more going on. It's a reformation of a society, a restoring of a community to who they were meant to be. And we're not just doing a service. We're not just becoming a group. The start of Nehemiah talks about the high priest and his fellow priests that go to work. People who represent people to God and God to people. In 1 Peter 2, verses 4 to 5, we're told, "As you come to him, the living stone," that's Jesus, "rejected by humans, but chosen by God and precious to him, you also, like living stones, are being built into a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood, offering spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ." I love the imagery of that. Now, Josh, I think you'd be able to verify that the advantage of being a builder is that often you're working with dead materials, things that don't move, right? The reason that bricks work as building materials is that they are the size that they are. They will never get bigger or smaller, and that's why you can build with them. We are described as living stones. Living stones are awkward because they grow at different stages, but they grow compact together, like living stones being built together. That means we elbow, and we get, some people grow quickly, some people grow slowly, some people stick at the bottom, some people rise up, and it's messy being a living stone. But that's what we're described as being. to be a holy priesthood. We are called to be people who represent people to God and God to people. In Ephesians 2:22 it says, and in him you too, that's us as well, are being built together to become a dwelling in which God lives by his Spirit. As the worship team come forward, we're called to partnership. And that will need consistency. It will need relationship. And it will need preparedness. And it will need us to bring our gifts and talents to God. But not just to find our sweet spots. At a very practical level, I mean, we need people who will be willing to help in a kids ministry. Heather and the team have been praying for a long time for people to be involved in the worship team. We need people who can welcome. And that may not be your sweet spot. But I think there's something that Nehemiah shows us. That when we ask who built the wall, it's not just the people who found their sweet spot. It's people who recognized the job that needed to be done and were willing to just do a job. Who didn't get offended or take offense. But we're willing to go over and above because we're building something that's way more important than just a wall. It is so much more important than just a church. I'm going to pray, and we're going to have some ministry time at the front as the musicians lead us in worship. I'm not going to tell you how to respond. I'll encourage you how to. I'll let you work that one out. But I will pray. Thank you that, God, that you are building something that's much more significant than just a gathering of people. You're doing something extremely important, and every single person is an important part of what you're doing. Thank you that your desire for us is partnership. And God, we want to commit with the things that we can do to the jobs that need doing, not just the ones that seem to fit us. Thank you that we are a body and every member is so important to you. Would you move in us now?